There's a little follow-up after the completed rebuild of the steering rack. I got a lot of comments from smart people that know what they're doing. Just wanted to include those in this little follow-up. So first thing, the adjuster on this is the tightness that you tighten this to is what the steering feel is you're going to get on the steering. So the tighter this gets, the harder it's going to be to turn the wheel. So when this goes back in the car, if the steering wheel doesn't feel right, I need to loosen this and adjust the tightness on this nut to get the right steering feel. If it wasn't made painfully clear of how I completely butchered this retainer here, scratching the crap out of the insides trying to get it out, don't be as barbaric as I was. Like I posted my video showing you how I mangled this whole inner board trying to get it out is a good example of what not to do. This is how I did it, but it's not the right way kind of thing. Do be really careful when you're getting that retainer out right here, because there is a seal right in here, and if you scratch the crap out of it or gouge it enough, then this whole rebuild will be pointless, and fluid's just going to come right out through that little hole. Start filling up the boot, start filling up this hose, start filling up this, and then just leaking once these boots break eventually. Or you're going to have a power steering leak you won't know what's causing. And getting that retainer out without gouging the inside like I did is key. So learn from my mistakes and try not to gouge yours as bad as I did to mine. And remember when I was putting in the seal here, how I said it was too small? This is the new seal. This is the old seal that was in this spot. And it's really hard to tell, but this new seal is a little bit smaller. Apparently there's two different size pinion housings, and my rebuild kit was not for my rack. So I guess there's an older version style rack that has a smaller bore for that seal, and my seal was for that rack. And honestly, I have no idea how you can tell if yours is older or not. I read something about the pinion housing being cast aluminum, which crusty mine looks, it probably is cast aluminum, but honestly, I'm not the person to be able to tell you. But there is two different types of racks, and I guess my rack and my rebuild kit were not the exact same. And also, the part I struggled with about 6 different times of trying to get the pinion in and then rotating it so that the rack will be centered. It's saying to put it in where this is on the side and then turn it so that when it's upright, the steering rack will be centered. Apparently it's not that big of a deal. You can adjust the tie rod ends to center during the alignment it's going to center the wheels, and then once the tires are centered, then you center the steering wheel onto the pinion itself. Keep the steering wheel nut off so you can take the steering wheel off and get it perfectly centered. So getting this in, that step I struggled so much with, is not that big of a deal apparently. When I was doing this, the instructions were not very beginner friendly, let's say. And some things that should be obvious were left out. For example, the bearing under this cap, you're supposed to grease that before you put it back in. I didn't. I actually, just yesterday, I popped this off and I packed a bunch of grease in there and put the cover back on. It's just a lot of little things like that it kind of, the instructions I was following doesn't really say to do, but they expect you to know what to do. I guess I didn't realize that an amateur like me was going to be doing this. And while I can't find the comments, I'll probably put it in editing, but there is I think they're called oak fear clamps or something, those one-time use metal clamps that are really nice tight fit that require a special tool. It's the clamp that requires this tool to get on the end and then you squish it down. Somehow I have the tool, but I don't have those clamps. And if you end up getting the Rock Auto special boots like I have here that come with this fancy zip tie, it'd be a good idea to replace it with those clamps so that it'll be a little bit more secure, because I honestly don't trust these. I really crank these down. But I don't know how long they'll last, especially on the reinstallation. Well, I should have got those good hose clamps, but I really want to get this done more than I want to wait a week for new parts to come in. I'm just going to keep going. Man, these things are in here. Holy crap. Where did I put that hole? Okay, stay. Running out of long zip ties, so stop coming off. You know, these O-rings, after I yanked off these hard lines, they're a little bit squished and kind of torn. It's hard to tell on camera, but I don't fully trust these, and I don't want to use them and have to deal with a catastrophic leak. So the ones that look bad, I'm taking them off, which is actually all of them. I'm just going to replace them with some Harbor Freight O-rings that I have, because I trust those more than I trust these. Let's see, which one goes where? Let's see. Don't remember how this works. Okay, this time, instead of going under the engine, I went over and dropped this hard line from above, and hopefully I can actually get it in here. Let's see. Is that one better? Sort of. Fat hose keeps getting in the way. And I don't want to put on the fat hose until I get this smaller one on, but I can't even get it to line up with the thread holes. I managed to get this hose, that one right there, in after a lot of struggle. It definitely helps to not have the rack mounted in, because I ended up moving it to the side and then just kind of tilting it over so I can get a nice window to reach at this. Of course, like when getting it off the car, you can only do 1/16 of a turn at a time to tighten this. It's just get it on here, turn this much, turn the wrench over, turn it this much, and then keep going until it tightens. Okay, it's 2 hours in and I'm almost halfway, but I came up with a tip. So this nut here is a 16 millimeter, but you know, when you're spinning it 1/16 of a turn at a time and then twisting the wrench, sometimes you kind of get in between turns, then you can't get the wrench on it. I have a 17 so that I can also get these in-betweens that the 16 wrench can't fit on, so it's helping accelerate progress. Okay, it's been several lifetimes, but I finally got that nut tightened on there. Now, just gotta get this beefy hose. Oh, I need to change the O-ring actually, hold on. There's the old O-ring. Actually doesn't look that bad. I could probably put this in and it wouldn't even leak, but oops. But I'm gonna put a new one anyway, because I have them, and why not? Wait. That's the wrong one. How about this? That looks better. So I just need to figure out how to ram this into here, which now it's all tangled up with the other hose. This was the main problem I was having with this hose that I just attached. I couldn't remember where it goes, where it fits back here, because the gear shifter right here runs across, and I didn't want this hose rubbing up against it, so I ended up putting the hose above it. Didn't look right. Going under it, still didn't look right. Now it looked right, so it lined up with the pinion housing, and the hose is clearing the gear shifter. I could stick my finger in there, it's just fine. So I think that'll work. It's been that long that I don't remember where the hose goes. Okay, here we go with the part I was looking forward to the least. I had so much trouble getting this thing off. Now I gotta get it back on. This doesn't go up, so I have to somehow get this in here, somehow get the rack down enough and line this up from underneath the car. And that bolt that goes through this, that has to line up with that little notch in the pinion shaft. It makes this even harder. Look at that. Getting so close. Now, this is the real test. If this bolt goes in, I think this is the right side. I read that getting this boot back on is nearly impossible, so I'm just gonna give it an attempt, but if I don't get it, I'm not gonna worry about it. Oh, and that's supposed to go on. Okay, I'm done. This one was a little bit harder to get in because this hose off the pump was blocking the bolts. I just manhandled the bolt until it went in. Oh, whoops. Wait, that's tightening it. Just like last time, I've tried multiple things to try to keep this thing from spinning. The tie rod nut. I tried hooking a ratchet strap to this and cranking it down to create some sideways pressure. It sort of worked. I was able to tighten it down a little bit. I tried using a C-clamp. That was a big waste of time. I tried jacking up this whole control arm to put some pressure on it. That didn't really work. I finally found what does work. Pedal to the metal. Whew, look at that mess. It's all the road grime and power steering fluid that I dropped on the ground. So what I plan on doing is a trick I've seen on one of my most favorite YouTube channels, Fuzzy Dice Projects. They use a tape measure, the distance between the front of the two tires and the distance between the back of the front two tires, and then that measurement difference is kind of how you do a home alignment. I don't expect this to be perfect, and I know suspension setup, you're supposed to have the car on the ground so that the suspension is loaded, and obviously I'm not doing that. I'm just doing what I've seen other people do. Now, since I don't have a helper, I am doing this with mechanical help. Go here. 59 and 1/8. No, 58 and 1/8. It's towed out by an inch. So 59 and 1/8 on the fronts, and 58 and 1/8 on the rears. So they need to tow in 1/2 inch on each side, I think. So when I took this apart, the manual says to measure from, there's like a little raised edge right here, and from the bottom of that to the end of the tie rod here. Which, yeah, you know, I probably should have done that anyways. Then I wouldn't be suffering with trying to figure this out, but oh well, too late. By the way, if someone asks if I marked where this adjuster was at, I didn't, and I'm not going to, because I'm going to get the car aligned after this no matter how good I get it to the original setting. End of the tie rod is 3 1/4. Tighten that in until it's 2 3/4. That'll be 1/2 inch, right? Coming to the end of the adjustment on the tie rod arm. This one's actually 3 1/4 is the same as the other side. It's pretty lucky. You know me, I'm Mr. Lucky. So it's pretty close. Put the wheels back on and see what it looks like and measure it again. Okay, I just put the tires back on temporarily. Just have 2 lug nuts holding them on. And the good news is they're very, very equal on both sides. The bad news is I think I turned it the wrong direction. I should have lengthened the arms, not shortened them. So I gotta pop these back off and adjust them the other way this time. Gotta lengthen them, not shorten them. Okay, after many readjustments, let's see here. 58 1/4. What was it last time? 59 or no. Hold on. Well, anyways, it's 58 1/4. I forgot what it was before. That's why I have the camera rolling. Alright, so now the front is 58 3/8. What is that? So 58 4. That's actually 1/8 on each side. So that means it's good enough to drive on the road to the alignment shop. That's what it means. Probably gonna get some heat for this. This is what's happening. I'm using power steering fluid. This is all I could get. And yeah, this is what's happening. Sorry. I went under the car just to check on all the hoses. And those 2 little hardline hoses that go to the pinion, to the rack, they were actually kind of loose. I'm glad I checked on it, because that could have been bad. Okay, the battery's plugged in for the first time in a long time. I'm gonna start it up and turn it lock to lock to get all the air bubbles out. That's way too much. I put too much fluid. It's so clean I couldn't tell on the tank. Well, besides running terribly from sitting from so long, I don't see any power steering leaks. It's still pretty dry down there. If this thing doesn't leak, at least for a little while, I'll be super happy. I'm gonna let it run for a bit and maybe take some fluid out, but I'm gonna keep doing the lock-to-lock steering and get all the air bubbles out. I think I'll take some out. It's about right here, which is actually, never mind. It's right below the cold line. But then again, it is on jack stand, so whatever. All right, I have not driven this car in a long time. I hope I remember how to shift gears. Yep, still runs the same. Check engine light and everything. Sounds like future content. Feels about the same as it was. Feels like this power steering has power assist. Like it's not hard or anything. Well, besides it running like an absolute turd, the steering feels the same way it did as the day I took it out. And it's not leaking. That's a success. I just need to straighten up the steering wheel and get it proper alignment and probably check the check engine light because it runs so bad right now. Even just as bad as it always did. Sound like a power-up sound.